Welcome to the AI Disability Podcast, where lived experience meets artificial intelligence. My name is John McKenna, using an AI-generated voice to explain that I'm the human producer behind the AI Disability Podcast. I bring over 60 years of lived experience as a person with a physical disability, along with a lifelong interest in accessibility, inclusion, and the power of shared experiences. As producer, my role is to choose the themes for each episode, guided by my belief that some messages, experiences, and conversations need to continue to be heard. From there, artificial intelligence researches the theme, develops the conversations, using two synthetic voices you will hear as your hosts. Together, we explore disability, technology, accessibility, inclusion, and the future possibilities of AI. Because this podcast is AI-generated, listeners are encouraged to independently verify information. The content is designed to encourage discussion, curiosity, and exploration, and should not be assumed to always be complete, accurate, or factual. The voices are artificial. The message is real. Imagine you're 66, you've just had a stroke, and overnight you need a wheelchair, home modifications, therapy, and help showering. Now imagine being told, gently but firmly, that the support door you thought existed has an age limit.
And the uncomfortable bit is that the need doesn't care about the birthday, the body, the house, the family routine, the bank account. They all still have to deal with what's changed.
I'm Riley, and today we're talking about the intersection of aging and disability, where they're different, where they overlap, and why common supports can make or break someone's independence.
I'm Ashley, and just to set the ground rules early, being older isn't the same as being disabled, and disability isn't an inevitable part of aging. But many people do live at that intersection, and our systems often struggle to see the whole person.
Right, because aging is a life stage. Disability is about barriers, impairments, access, and the support someone needs to participate. They can meet, but they're not synonyms.
This is true. National figures show more than 1 in 5 Australians live with disability, and among people aged 65 and over, it's around 1 in 2. So this isn't a niche market, it's millions of people, families, and carers.
And yet the policy conversation often sounds like two separate filing cabinets. One drawer says older people, another drawer says disabled people. Real life, annoyingly, refuses to stay in the drawer.
That's such a good image, because the overlap includes at least 3 groups. People who've lived with disability since childhood or adulthood and are now aging. People who develop disability because of chronic illness. And people who acquire disability suddenly later in life after an injury, stroke, dementia diagnosis, or sensory loss.
Let's slow that down because it's a really important distinction. Someone aging with a lifelong disability might have living experiences in their own support needs, while someone acquiring disability at 72 may be learning a whole new language under stress.
Yes, and their supports may look similar on the surface: help at home, transport, personal care, communication support, but the reason, timing, and intensity can be totally different. A ramp isn't just a ramp, it might be the difference between isolation and going to the shops.
So when we say common supports, we're not saying everyone needs the same package. We're saying there are shared building blocks: safe housing, accessible transport, allied health, personal assistance, equipment, respite, and clear information.
And those building blocks need to be flexible. Take showering support as an example. For one older person, it might be short-term assistance after surgery. For a disabled person, it might be lifelong daily support tied to dignity, safety, pain, fatigue, and choice.
This is where people can fall through the cracks, isn't it? If a system sees only age, it may miss disability-specific needs. If it sees only impairment, it may miss aging-related health changes, grief, frailty, or carer burnout.
That's the heart of it. The risk is that disability needs to get absorbed into a generic aging framework, as though they're just normal aging. But a person may need specialist communication support, behavioural support, assistive technology, or decision-making support that ordinary home help won't cover.
And the reverse can happen too. A disabled person getting older might suddenly need more health monitoring, falls prevention, medication support, or palliative care, and those needs shouldn't be treated like a failure of independence.
Yes, independence isn't doing everything alone. It's having the right supports so you can make choices. That's true whether you're 24, 54, or 84.
Let's talk about the age line, because listeners may have heard that some disability supports are mainly designed for people who enter before 65. What's the practical effect of that?
Practically, it can mean two neighbours with very similar functional needs get very different pathways because one became disabled before 65 and one after. The younger person may access more specialist disability supports, while the older person may be directed toward aged care style services.
And I can hear the argument for having different systems. Older people often need supports related to aging, and disability supports were designed around significant and permanent disability before older age.
That's the Steelman version. Separate systems can specialise. Aged supports can focus on aging-related care, health decline, home assistance, and residential care. Disability supports can focus on participation, autonomy, equipment, therapy, and lifelong barriers.
But here's where I get stuck. If the person's need is for communication technology after a stroke, or home modifications after limb loss, does it really matter whether the birthday cake had 64 candles or 66?
I hear that, and that's the strongest counterpoint. Age can become a blunt administrative shortcut. It may be easy to run, but it can feel arbitrary when someone's support needs a specialist, urgent, and not well met by a general aged care pathway.
So reasonable people might agree that budgets and system boundaries matter, while still saying the boundary shouldn't erase disability.
So true. The fair synthesis is not necessarily one giant system for everyone. It's a joined-up approach where assessment follows the person's actual functional needs, not just their age bracket.
Let's make that concrete. Say Margaret is 78, lives in regional Victoria, has arthritis, and now has significant vision loss. What might she need beyond a weekly cleaner?
She might need orientation and mobility training, screen reading technology, better lighting, transport to appointments, help reading mail, and support to keep managing money safely. If she's treated only as an older person who needs domestic assistance, the disability-specific part disappears.
And if Margaret lives 2 hours from the nearest specialist, the barrier isn't only her vision. It's geography, transport, workforce shortages, digital forms, and maybe patchy internet.
Yes, and those barriers compound for First Nations elders, culturally and linguistically diverse communities, older women living alone, LGBTQIA plus older people, and people with limited income. Intersection doesn't just mean aging plus disability, it can mean many forms of disadvantage stacking up.
That word, intersection, can sound academic, but really it's the moment when multiple parts of someone's life interact, not in a neat Venn diagram, but in a messy Tuesday morning phone call.
Totally. Imagine a carer ringing around for a shower chair, a speech therapist, transport, and respite. Each service says, "That's not us." After the fifth call, the family isn't debating policy design. They're exhausted.
And exhaustion has consequences. If support arrives late, someone's condition can deteriorate faster. A preventable fall happens. A carer quits work. A person moves into residential care earlier than they wanted.
That's where common supports become preventative, not just nice to have. A grab rail, a pressure cushion, regular physiotherapy, or a support worker who understands communication needs can keep someone connected and safer at home.
I want to separate two ideas that often get blurred. Aging can bring changes like reduced stamina, hearing loss, or chronic conditions. Disability, though, is not just a medical diagnosis. It's also what happens when environments don't adapt.
Yes, a person using a wheelchair is far more disabled by stairs than by a flat entrance. An older person with memory changes is far more vulnerable when information is confusing, rushed, or only online.
So the solution isn't only more care, it's better design, clearer pathways, accessible housing, transport that actually turns up, forms in plain language, and workers trained to recognize both aging and disability.
And we should talk about choice. Older people are sometimes spoken about as passive recipients of care, while disabled people have fought hard for language around rights, participation, and control. That rights lens matters at 80 just as much as at 30.
There's a subtle ageism there, isn't there? The idea that once someone is old, comfort is enough. But people still want risk, routine, sex, work, culture, faith, family, hobbies, a life basically. Life.
Yes, and dignity isn't just being clean and fed, it's being listened to. It's having a say in who comes into your home, what time you get up, whether you attend a community event, and how decisions are made.
Now, the other side might say, hold on, we can't promise every support to every person. The workforce is stretched, costs are rising, and taxpayers need sustainability. That's not a fake concern.
No, it's real. Sustainability matters because an underfunded or chaotic system fails everyone. But the counter-argument is that rationing by confusion is a terrible way to save money. If people deteriorate, the costs often reappear in hospitals, crisis care, and family breakdown.
So the debate shouldn't be compassion versus cost. It should be, what's the smartest support at the right time, and who is responsible for making sure the person doesn't get bounced around?
Exactly. A better model would have a warm handover, shared assessments, and common supports that don't vanish because someone crosses an age threshold. The person shouldn't need a law degree to understand where to go.
Let's name the emotional piece too. One line from a person with living experiences has really stayed with me. Being elderly and having a disability can make you feel invisible.
That's powerful because invisibility shows up in policy, but also in everyday moments. People speak to the carer instead of the person. Services assume decline is inevitable. Complaints can sometimes be dismissed as someone being difficult.
And invisibility can be dangerous. Aging and disability can each carry higher risks of marginalization, discrimination, neglect, and abuse. Together, those risks can multiply, especially when someone depends on others for intimate daily support.
Which is why safeguards matter. Accessible complaints, supported decision-making, independent advocacy, culturally safe services, and workers who understand that protection must not become control. Safety and autonomy have to travel together.
If you're listening and thinking about your own family, what questions should you ask before crisis hits?
I'd ask, what does this person need to keep doing the things that matter to them? Are the supports about aging, disability, or both? Who coordinates them? Are communication, transport, housing, and carer needs included, not just personal care?
And I'd add, does the person understand their options and have they actually been asked what they want? Because a neat service plan that ignores the person's preferences isn't neat at all.
So the big takeaway is that older people and disabled people are distinct groups with distinct histories and rights claims. But when their needs overlap, the support should be common where it can be, specialised where it must be, and centred on the whole person.
Beautifully put. Aging shouldn't make disability invisible, and disability shouldn't make aging an afterthought. Thanks for listening. I'm Riley, with Ashley, and we'll catch you next time.